Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our training webinar. I am Lorraine Estelle, and I am the project director at Counter. And Paula, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would. Hello, everybody. My name is Paula Younger, and I joined Counter very recently to provide technical support.
So before we start, just a little bit about Counter. Counter is a membership organisation, and our members are libraries, library consortia, publishers and vendors. And the members are very important to us. They provide our income. But more than that, the members themselves form our committees, our working groups, and it is our members that develop the Counter Code of Practice. The Counter Code of Practice is a technical manual which allows vendors and publishers to implement the counting and reporting of usage in a consistent way. And today we're going to be talking about Release 5. That is the latest release of the Counter Code of Practice, which has been effective from January. We've got quite a lot to get through, and we're going to start by talking about the book reports, and then we will move on to talk about the journal reports. We will pause from time to time to take your questions. Please do use the chat box, or if you want to speak when we stop for the questions, please unmute and do so. So let us make a start. As I say, the first section of the training webinar today is about the book reports and book metrics. We will be showing you how these work and how you can use the metrics to calculate cost per use. Just before we look at the Release 5, I just want to go back and talk a little bit about Release 4. And I imagine that some of you at least used Release 4 Counter reports. And you will know that in Release 4, there were two different types of reports for books. The report called BR1 for entire books delivered as a single PDF, and the BR2 report for books delivered in chapters. Now, this way of presenting the usage statistics for the different types of platforms resulted in two problems. It was problematic for librarians to compare usage across platforms. And it was also very difficult, well, impossible really, to calculate cost per use at the title level for those platforms that deliver chapters rather than whole books. So Release 5 has really dealt with those two issues. And the way that it has done that is to develop new metrics. And those metrics really come in pairs. The metric types we call investigations relate to user actions which are about exploring a content item. So, for example, viewing an abstract or a book preview. Requests relate to user actions which are about accessing full text. Now, full text can be in any format. It can be HTML full text, PDF, EPUB, or indeed any other full text format. As you can see in this diagram, all user actions are investigations. View HTML full text, view PDF, EPUB full text are counted both as investigations and requests. Now, certainly I found this concept of investigations and requests quite complicated myself when we were working on the development of Release 5. But I find that this diagram here really helped me to understand. And what we're seeing here is a busy user on a book platform, and she starts by looking at about these proceedings and clicks on that. She then goes to the first chapter of this book, Dictionary, Learning, Informed Deep Neural Network, etc., and she clicks to view the HTML. She then decides that she's going to download the PDF, and she clicks again. She then decides that she's going to download the PDF of the second chapter. She goes ahead and does that. Having downloaded those 2 chapters, she decides, after all, she is going to download the 4-book PDF. So quite a busy user there. Now, how does that translate in terms of the new Release 5 metrics? Well, let's have a look. Now, as you can see, these are the metrics. And the total item investigations is 5. And that's really very easy to see because there are 5 clicks on the screen. Then we have the concept of total item requests. And you will see that that is 4. Now remember, those requests relate to full text. And the 4 requests were Chapter 1, HTML, Chapter 2 PDF, Chapter 1 PDF, Chapter 2 PDF, and then the PDF of the entire book. But you see here that we have another metric called unique item requests, and that is 3. Now the reason that that is 3 is that this unique item, the first chapter, counts only as one as a unique, because the HTML and the PDF were both related to that same item, the first chapter. And then we get to the real magic, I think, metrics, which are what we call unique title investigations and unique title requests. And although we had a very busy user here, clicking and downloading and viewing all sorts of things, they were all related to this same title in the same session. So unique title investigations is 1, everything related to this one book, and unique title requests is 1, because all the full text views and downloads related to this one title. So you can see that total items relate to, total item investigations relates to the total number of times a content item or information about a content item was investigated by the user. Total item requests is the total number of times a full text, HTML, PDF, or EPUB content item was requested by a user. Recently, somebody asked me a question, and I thought it was a very useful one to consider. And that is, what if a user looked at a summary of a book, for example, a bibliographic record, but then decided not to request it? In that case, you would see total item investigations 1, total items requests 0. Now, moving on, let's have a look at the unique items metrics again. Unique item metrics are the metrics that tell us about the number of unique content items, for example, chapters or indeed a book, investigated or requested by a user. So let's take an example here. If a user had requested the HTML of a chapter of a book and had also requested a PDF of the same chapter, the count would be unique item request 1. We saw that again in the example we had earlier. Unique title metrics. These are the metrics that tell us about the number of unique book titles investigated or requested by a user. So, for example, if a user requests 2 chapters from the same book title, the count is unique title requests 1. The unique title metric is only used in the counter book reports, and it is the key metric for calculating cost per use at the title level. And this metric also allows you to compare usage at the book title level across different platforms. And that applies whether the platform delivers books as a single PDF or as chapters. So again, just to say, unique title requests, that is what you really need to calculate your cost per use for books. Before we go on to talk about the reports, I'm also just going to talk a little bit about the attributes. Now, in counter reports, we have the metrics we've just discussed, but the master reports also include other information about content items, which can be helpful in understanding usage. And there are 2 of these attributes that I particularly want to draw your attention to. The first is data type. This is the list of data types. You can see article, book segment, etc. In book standard views, the data type is always book because the data type equals book filter. In journal standard views, you are most likely to see journal as the data type. So here we can see a report, and this column here is showing you the data type. Now, as you can see, the title being reported on is Journal 6, and therefore the data type is journal. If the titles being investigated or requested were books, of course it would be data type book. Now, the other attribute, which is a very useful one to look out for, is section type. This attribute is used when content is delivered in chunks or in sections. And this attribute describes what that section is. So, for example, a book may be accessed by chapter. Content in an article is generally accessed by article. So again, if we look at a sample report, you can see here we're reporting on this journal. The data type, as we've already seen, is journal, and the section type is article. Now, we're going to look a little bit more about the reports that are available to give you information about book usage. So I'm going to hand over to Paula, who's going to tell you all about those reports. So over to you, Paula.
Thank you. Just to remind you as well, if you have questions that occur to you during this webinar, please use the chat box. And also, if you have questions for us afterwards, there will be an email that we give at the end. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about the book reports in more detail. Now, the counter book reports provide information about usage of books, and the title master report, which is TR, shows the activity across all metrics for entire titles, which may be books or journals. Now, this report is packed with information, so it may include the type of content investigated or requested, the data type, the section type, and the year of publication. The TR can be filtered according to your user needs, and there are 3 standard views. Now, standard views are pre-canned views, and these apply specifically to book usage. Next slide, please. So you can see here, TRB1 is the standard view, which reports on book requests. You do need to know that it excludes gold open access books. It only reports on books where the access is controlled. Now, by book request, we mean that a user has viewed or downloaded a full text content item. TRB1 only uses 2 of the counter metric types, so it uses total item requests and unique title requests, and it reports on those books where access is controlled. Next slide, please. So the standard view, TRB2, is a standard view that shows on book access denied. Now this shows where users were denied access to books. This may have been because simultaneous use or concurrency licenses were exceeded. It may be because the institution did not have a license for the database. Denials sometimes are referred to as turnaways, so you may know them under that name. This report uses 2 metric types, limit exceeded and no license. Next slide, please. So TRB3 is the standard view, and this shows all applicable metric types broken down by access type. Now you can see this is quite a detailed report. There are 6 metric types, which you can see in the 3rd column there. Most ebook reports currently concern books that are behind the paywall. So this report, TRB3, is one that may not be one that you would use a great deal at the moment. However, if the number of open access gold books increases, it's likely that this will become increasingly important. We're just going to take a short pause before we move on to look at how the book reports play out on different platforms. But are there any questions before we actually move on to that?
We have a question in the chat box, and the question is, does Counter integrate with the ebook databases we have and the information library systems? What is the process? Okay, well, I think in terms of the ILS, most of them will integrate with counter usage statistics. I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean by the ebook databases. Could you give me a bit more context there, please? Perhaps you'd like to talk and explain. Ah, right, EBSCOhost. Okay, academic collections of ebooks. Yeah, absolutely. So EBSCOhost, with that database, will be providing you with counter reports, and there should be no problem whatsoever with the integration. Yeah, that should have worked seamlessly. So I hope it does. Okay, any more questions before we move on? Doesn't look like it, Paula. Are you taking the next slide or am I? I can't quite remember.
I think you're clicking it. I think we have just had a follow-up to that question.
Oh, right, we have.
And can I just clarify as well? So when you're asking about ebook collections, is it ebook collections where you access them through a library system, such as Innovative Interfaces or Millennium or OCLC, or do you access the ebooks directly? Okay, I think we may need to get back to you on that one. I think I can see that the specific platform that you've mentioned is Koha, so I think we'd need to get back to you on that one. I'll make a record of the question and we'll come back to you when we have an answer for that particular method of managing your bibliographic data and access.
Yes, I don't know about that one either. But just in terms of your other question about ProQuest, eBook Central, yes, they are providing Release 5 usage data. So again, there should be no problems at all with eBook Central. They are providing the data. And yes, Paul, we'll look into your other question and try and get back to you. Where are we?
Okay, so if there are no more questions, that's great. Thank you, Lorraine. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take a look at how the book reports play out for some of the different platforms. Now, on this screen, we have a title master report, and it's on platform A. We're going to call it platform A. Please note that we have hidden some of the columns so that it does fit on the slide, because this is quite a detailed report. So you can see on the screen there the report for the big book of chapters, which is provided via platform A. Now, platform A delivers books as single PDFs. So the user has downloaded the big book of chapters, and there are 27 chapters in total. However, all 27 chapters are delivered together as a single item. So in this case, the book is the item. So you can see the numbers that you get there. There's one total item request, there's one unique item request, and there's one unique title request. So that's in the standard view, which is TRB1. Now, just to make you aware as well, the attribute section type is not shown in the standard view. This is the pre-canned summary of the master report. Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Okay, so on this slide, you can see it's the same book. It's still the big book of chapters, but it's provided by a different platform. So we called this platform Platform B. Now, on this platform, the 27 chapters are provided as individual items, and you can see how that affects the numbers. So total item requests are 27, unique item requests are 27. However, the unique title request remains at 1. And again, just to make you aware, the attribute section type is not shown in the standard view. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a few notes about platform differences. Now, a lot of platforms deliver books as PDFs, as chapters only, or as books only. However, there are a few platforms where there are other approaches to the user experience that are taken. In some cases, this may be that chapters are delivered in a zip file. And in this case, those platforms are reporting each of the individual chapters as unique items. There's also another way that occasionally you will come across when you're looking at ebooks, and that is the delivery of a single PDF, which is created on the fly. So the user requests the whole book from individual chapter PDFs, and these platforms, again, are reporting each of the individual chapters as unique items. Next slide, please. So to compare book usage, the numbers of unique item requests may vary between publisher platform, and this depends on whether the content is delivered as a complete book or whether it's delivered chapter by chapter. However, the unique title requests will be the same regardless of the delivery mechanism, which is why it's your key metric for working out cost per use. I'm just going to hand you back to Lorraine for the last part of the book section, and then we'll be moving on to journals.
Thank you, Paula. Now, a lot of you will be wanting to compare over time. You want to compare your Release 4 reports with the new Release 5 reports. And this is very straightforward in most cases. If a platform delivered books as a single PDF and would have used BR1 in Release 4, then you can compare very easily by using the Release 5 metric, unique title requests and data type book. Very straightforward. Equally, for platforms which delivered books as chapters and use the BR2 report in Release 4, again, very straightforward to compare. Take your BR2 report and total item requests and data type chapter in Release 5, and you can do a straight comparison across time. Now, I will tell you, though, that there are a couple of platforms that we are aware of where this does not work. One is Springer, one is IOP, and there may be a few others. We're not absolutely sure. But for legacy reasons, a few platforms that deliver books as a single PDF didn't report in BR1, they reported in BR2 at the chapter level. So although they were delivering the books as single PDFs, if a book, for example, had 7 chapters, then they would report 7 chapters in BR2. Now, for those particular vendors, it is not possible to compare over time really very easily. So that is the only case where you cannot compare. Now, we're going to go on, I think, and talk about the journal reports. But before we talk about the journal reports, are there any other questions about the book reports while it's fresh in our minds? Okay, I can't see any other questions, but of course, if you do have them, just drop them in the chat box. So again, I'm just going to go back before talking about the journal reports in Release 5 and tell you about the issue that there was in Release 4 and the way that Release 5 has tackled it. Now, as you all know, some journal platforms take the user to an abstract, and then the user decides if they want to view the HTML full text or to download a PDF. On other platforms, the user is taken directly to the HTML full text and may then also download a PDF of the same article. Now, the latter type of platform was likely in Release 4 to report higher usage than the former type. This is sometimes called the platform effect. Release 5 resolves this, whatever the design of the platform, through the unique item metric. And I will be showing you how that works as we go through. Again, we're going to be showing you some sample reports, and I just want to flag up that in order to make them fit onto the slides, we have truncated them and hidden some of the columns, so just a little warning there. So again, I think it's helpful to start by looking at user actions on a platform. And after all, that's what Counter is all about, capturing user actions. So here we have a journal platform, the Royal Society, and here you can see our user has had 3 clicks on this platform. He first of all decides to look at the article abstract. He then decides to look at the full text, HTML full text, and then decides also to download the PDF. Now, in Release 4, that would have been reported as follows. You would have seen reporting period HTML successful request 1, reporting period PDF successful request 1, and reporting period total successful request 2. Now, that 2 was quite misleading in some ways, and in fact many librarians actually ignored HTML usage altogether. So in Release 5, that is resolved with unique item metric. So you can see here the counts in Release 5. You'll see that the total item investigations is 3. That's always quite an easy one because it relates to the 3 clicks we see on the screen. Unique item investigations is 1, and that is because all those clicks related to exactly the same article. Total item requests are 2, and that is because the user requested the HTML and the PDF. But unique item requests is 1. So you can see even in those cases where the user requests both HTML and PDF in the same session, the unique item request is the metric that you'll want to use, particularly when you're calculating cost per use, because it avoids all that double counting. So you can have complete confidence in that number. Now, the journal reports have the same master report as the books, which Paula spoke to you about, but it has 4 standard views. As Paula said, these are the pre-canned views from the master report. And again, the TRJ1 is the very, very useful report, and it gives you that top level overview of usage. Now, one thing to note is that it excludes open access gold. So any article which is OA gold, usually because an article processing charge, APC, has been paid, is excluded from this report. And that's because very often librarians want to calculate cost per use based on the content that they have paid for, the content which is behind the paywall. And it's a very useful report because it has just those 2 metric types: total item requests and unique item requests. And those unique item requests are a robust metric and will help you really make sense of usage on different platforms and ensure comparability. So here I have made a sample TRJ1 report. Again, I've hidden lots of columns so that it fits on. And I've also done the same for the JR1, so just so that you can see how the Release 5 reports differ from Release 4. So as you can see here, the example we had earlier with the user clicking, the journal was called Interface Focus. And you would have seen here in reporting period that count 1 for the PDF, and the reporting period total 1 for the HTML, and the total would have been 2. Here in the Release 5 report at the top, unique item requests 1, because both those HTML and PDF were the same article, total item requests 2. And the reason we have total item requests still is it helps you compare usage across the 2 releases, across time, as I'll show you later. A couple of things to note when we're looking at these new report formats. In Release 1, as I've said, there is no HTML or PDF metrics. And also, you should note 2 metrics per journal. And this is why there are no totals. In Release 4, we had this total line. In Release 5, there isn't a total line because you can't total those 2 metrics together. But you can pivot the table and calculate the totals yourself very easily. And I'll talk a bit more about that later on as well. The other thing just to note in the new Release 5 reports is that journals with 0 usage are excluded. Now, not all librarians are happy about that, but the reason is because very often platforms were reporting on not just the titles you subscribe to, but all the titles on their platform. And that could mean hundreds and hundreds of rows of zero usage. And that's why if any title does have zero usage, you won't see it on the reports. But you can use the KBART to match up so that you can see which titles have had no usage. Other reports in release 5 are the JR2. This is the standard view which shows you journal access denied. Just as Paula explained when she was talking about the book equivalent, these are often called turnaways. And this is where users were denied access to journals because the institution did not have a license or the content for the content or simultaneous use concurrency licenses were exceeded. And this report has 2 metric types, limit exceeded and no license. Now, journal TRJ3, the report TRJ3, journal usage by access type, is a very much more useful report when it comes to journals than perhaps with books. And just to remind you that the access type is an attribute which describes the nature of the access control that was in place when the content item was accessed. So whether it was controlled behind the paywall or whether it was open because of an article processing charge being paid. Now, there are 4 metric types in this report: total item investigations, total item requests, unique item investigations, and unique item requests. Again, I have mocked up here for the Journal of Amazing a Release 5 report so that you can see what this looks like. Now, you will see here the access type for this article is OA Gold. And you can see the counts, 2 item investigations, 2 requests, 1 unique item investigation, and 1 unique item request. Another article in the same journal is behind the paywall, is controlled, and again, exactly the same usage as the other article, but you will see here in this column, you can differentiate between OA Gold and controlled. Now, as we said, the TRJ1 excludes that OA Gold usage. So when you want to calculate cost per use, you can use the TRJ1. If you want to get a picture of the amount of content that is being used behind the paywall and the amount of content that is being used, which is OA Gold, this is a very good report to use. Now, in Release 4, that was all much more complicated. And I've just mocked up a little diagram here to show you, a sample reports to show you what it was like in Release 4. Because in Release 4, the JR1 included OA Gold, and the JR1 GOA report just reported on OA Gold. So in order to get the figures for just controlled content, you had to take away the figures in the JR1 GOA from the figure in the JR1. All very complicated, but you don't need to do that any longer. Now, the other report, which is very, very useful, is the TRJ4. And this report shows full text usage of non-gold open access content by year of publication. So again, open access OA Gold is excluded, and there are 2 metric types, total item requests and unique item requests. And you can see here the top sample here is the release 5 TRJ4, and you can see here that you will get these rows for each year of publication of that journal. Now, this information is very important in some cases. For a lot of journals, archival content is available, but under a separate license. You will have paid for that archival, or sometimes it's called backfile content, separately under a separate license. And when you want to calculate cost per use, you will probably want to calculate that based on your current content license, and you want to exclude the content which is covered by the archival backfile license. So this gives you this breakdown by year of publication, and you can do that calculation. Of course, it's also quite interesting to see where the usage is coming from in terms of year of publication. And I think the really important thing to note here is, again, there are these rows of years, whereas in release 4, a sample here, there were columns per year. And of course, important to note, again, there are 2 metrics for each year. And again, if you want to calculate the totals for a year or for a range of years, you can do a pivot on the Excel report, and you can calculate those totals. So I think that was, before I go on, that's quite a lot to take in. So again, I think it's a good idea just to pause to see if there are any questions, either for me or again, if we want to have back to Paula. Okay, well, doesn't look as if we have any questions. So I just wanted to say here that I have mentioned pivoting your usage reports to do calculations, find totals, etc., etc. Now, some people, and I'm sure you're probably among them, are very confident at using Excel in that way. For some of us, though, it is a little bit more challenging. And therefore, we're very, very grateful to Cornelia Young from Wiley, a member of our executive committee, who has made a wonderful resource. It is a YouTube video, and it's available at this link, and I'll send you the slides after so that you can pick it up. And it really takes you through step by step how to use Excel to calculate those totals, and indeed to do much, much more. So I highly recommend it. And we are also hoping next year perhaps to have Connie run some workshops for us as well. And if we manage to get that organised, we will certainly let you know. Now, I also just want to mention this comparison across time when you're trying to compare release 4 with release 5. Now, it's a little complicated, but it is fairly simple to do. So what you need to do is take your release 4 reports, JR1, and deduct the usage in the GOA report, the Gold Open Access report, to find your totals without, for controlled only, without open access. Now, for a straight comparison, you will want to use total item requests, because you will remember that includes both the HTML and PDF that users may have downloaded in the same session. And you will see that the total item requests pretty well match, so I should say from the TRJ1, the total item requests will match pretty much what you had in release 4. There may be a few minor differences, and I mean very, very minor, to do with underlying data processing, but really those metrics will map across time. However, going forward, you will probably want to use the unique item requests metric, because this is the more robust metric. Now, if you use that metric, you will see quite a considerable difference with release 4, and in some cases you'll see more of a difference than in others. Those platforms that took users first to the HTML and then the user decided whether to download a PDF, generally have higher usage in release 4. So where that, when you're doing those comparisons with unique item requests, you will see that the ratio, the difference is much, much higher. But as I say, total item requests will give you that comparison over time. So I see somebody say, yes, please send the slides for revision. I will certainly send you the slides for revision. Right, there's a question here. What is the procedure for integrating counter? Again, that's something we really don't know. We're not familiar with the resource you know, but we'll try and do some research and get back to you on that integration procedure. There's another question here. If the publisher has not integrated release 5, if the publisher has not integrated release 5, we will use the release 4 to create their usage reports. Yes, I think you will find, Hannah, that most publishers have release 5 reports available, but where they haven't, of course, you could continue to use their release 4 reports. The only thing I would flag up about that is that those publishers that have moved to release 5 are compliant with our standard, and this means that their reports and their methods that they're using to generate the reports are audited every year by an independent auditor. So you can have confidence that release 5 reports have been checked independently. Any of the publishers that are continuing to use release 4 will not have been checked, will not have been audited. So do bear that in mind, that those reports are likely to be less reliable. Oh, there was another question here. I'm still not clear how it integrates with EBSCO. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question then, because EBSCO is fully compliant with release 5. Might be something we might want to follow up offline, and perhaps you could send me, or Paula indeed, an email with some more questions. Yeah, another question about integrating with your open resource. Okay, I think we've answered all the questions in the chat box. Are there any other things you would like to ask us? Indeed, Paula, is there anything we forgot to mention?
I don't think so. We're just about to put the slide up that has the contact details on there, if there is anything that any of you remember afterwards. Oh
yes, let's go to that slide. So here we have, and again, we will send these slides to you when we finish this call. This link here will take you to our YouTube channel, On the YouTube channel, you will find the tutorial about using Excel, but also many of the other foundation classes we have. Our website, of course, has a lot of information, and also you can send questions to Paula, and this is her email address here, and she will be able to reply in detail. Okay, well, I think our takeaway is to find out about integrating with your open source system, and we will do some investigation. So thank you all very much for joining us. And as we say, any questions afterwards, please do get in contact with Paula at this email address, and she will be happy to help you. Paula, I'm just going to run over and let the dog out. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks, Lauren.